Daphne Returns is the 19th episode of Season 8 of Frasier. This is directed by Pamela Fryman, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. And I hope I don't miss anything out in this discussion. I actually watched this last week and made my notes, planning to record it the next day, and then my schedule got away from me. So I haven't watched Frasier in a week, having withdrawal symptoms, looking forward to watching it again today. But if I do miss out anything that seems really obvious, I apologise. Hopefully that won't happen. It starts off in Cafe Nervosa. Roz is thinking of writing a children's book based on a story her mother used to tell her, which she now tells to Alice. That's really, really sweet. And then Frasier starts to talk about stories that he and Niles used to write, and then Niles comes in before he's going to pick up Daphne. Roz then leaves, and then we learn that Niles and Daphne hasn't, as he put it, consummated our relationship, which is interesting enough. It's been quite a while. I'm not sure how long they've been together for at this point, but it seems like a decent amount of time. We then cut to Niles and Daphne in the car. The car is full of balloons, which is very sweet. I'm trying to work out how I'd feel if I were Daphne in that scenario. Part of me thinks it's overkill, but also that's a lot of effort, especially if Niles blew them up. I can't remember if they were helium balloons or not, but that's very, very sweet. Niles has also brought the dress that Daphne wore when they danced together. And it feels a little bit awkward. There's just something in the air that doesn't feel quite right. Daphne then starts to talk about her therapist, Gloria, and Gloria thought that the weight gain was a way of keeping distance between them. Gloria also thinks that Daphne was worried about not being perfect since Niles had pined after her for years. Gloria also said that Niles couldn't see the extra weight that Daphne had gained because he could only see the perfect Daphne, which actually sounds plausible. I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychiatrist certainly, but it seems believable, and I could absolutely understand that being the case, and it's definitely some food for thought there. We then cut to the apartment, Frasier's apartment, with Roz and Martin. Martin then suggests that there could be a book about Eddie joining the circus, Eddie inventing a flying machine. I love it. I absolutely love it, and I think they missed a huge trick. They should have done that. I think the books would have sold well. Frasier fans would have bought them. Young children reading these books would have grown up aware of Eddie, making them more likely to then tune into Frasier in decades down the line when they're old enough. I think that would have been absolutely brilliant. There is actually a book written, it is written by Eddie. It is from it's written by Moose. It's about Moose and his life as a celebrity dog and what it's like on Frasier. It's a lot of fun, definitely worth reading. But the children's book, I think that series would have been really great, and I really think they missed a trick. Daphne then arrives. Frasier put a pig noise in the fridge. Every time the fridge opens, there's a noise of a pig, and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I don't think we're meant to like it, fair enough, but I really hate it. They're then talking about Gloria again, and Niles, in response to finding out about Gloria's weight gain, Niles says, didn't she have a boyfriend she could blame? Which is a little harsh, and an interesting point as well is up until that moment, I wasn't really thinking that this was Niles's fault. I was just thinking it was potentially a natural response to the situation, but clearly Niles had took the words to mean, this is your fault. And I think that's really telling, and I think that that's really interesting. One too many remarks. Daphne asks Niles to leave, and I'm glad Roz was there for Daphne because I think things were very unkind and very unnecessary, and it's uncomfortable to watch. We then cut to Niles with a patient. Frasier then visits Niles, and I love this so much. They go back to the very beginning when Niles met Daphne. Usually, I can't abide TV shows, or at least episodes, where they heavily rely on flashbacks from previous episodes. I just find it really boring. But what they did here is really, really good, because we have a kind of a Christmas Carol effect here where present day Frasier and Niles are actually in the scene watching the older clips, and I just thought it gave it something a little bit different. I thought it was a really good decision, and for once I didn't mind flashbacks. And we see their initial meeting, we see them dancing, which I think is not just one of Niles and Daphne's best scenes, but one of the show's best scenes. Is just so perfectly executed. Then we have them singing Heart and Soul, which is a song that I love, and another one of my personal favourite scenes. And again, this is all with Niles and Frasier watching and providing commentary, which I thought was a really, really good approach. And then Frasier says, and I don't agree with this, but Frasier says, you were never in love with her, you were in love at her. And I don't agree with that from the point that they got together. Yes, up until I was going to say the day that they actually got together. I don't know if it's a spoiler for a previous episode, so just in case for some reason you haven't seen it, I won't give it away. But the date they got together, up until that point, yes, he was in love at her. He idolized her. But once they actually got to spend proper time together, I do believe he was in love with her, and I believe it happened very quickly. So I don't agree with Frasier. But I also do feel that he probably does still see her as perfect, and that might not be the healthiest approach. I feel like there's a fine line between accepting your partner, their faults and all, and believing they can do no wrong. And unfortunately, Niles is really quite far over that line. And I do think that there are some really good takeaways for anybody watching this who might be in the same position. It might feel great to think your partner can do no wrong and to think they're the best thing that's ever happened, but clearly it's not very healthy. And it also, as we are seeing, affects Daphne as well. And then Frasier said something that I actually did think was really interesting. And Frasier says, and I quote, maybe Daphne's not the only one who's afraid she won't measure up. Not something I'd ever considered before. But maybe Niles is also afraid that he's going to not be what Daphne wants. And when you've pined for somebody for so long, and you finally get to be in a relationship with them, what if they don't really care for you, don't really end up falling in love with you? And I don't think it's something Niles ever considered consciously would be a problem, because he was just so wrapped up in this perfect relationship, or this mirage of a perfect relationship, that he's not allowed himself to question the potential alternate reality. And again, I do think it's really quite interesting. So I don't fully agree with everything this episode is suggesting, but for the most part, I think there are some really strong takeaways. Roz then comes over to the apartment. She sold the children's book, which is very quick and very exciting. She phones her mother to tell her the good news. And apparently she sold her publisher's Hyde, which I love so much. I haven't read it. I love the story. I've seen multiple adaptations. I do need to read it. But I love the fact that, well, I love the fact that they had this bond of her mother telling her this story, and now Roz tells Alice this story. It's really sweet. It's funny that it ends up being Heidi, but it also kind of ruins it a little bit as well, that her mother never made up this story just for Roz. It was, yeah, so bittersweet, but generally very funny. Niles then comes over and apologizes, and his way of apologizing includes the words, I don't really care for your cooking. And he said all of these negative things about her cooking with almost a gleeful smile on his face. And he's smiling because it's a breakthrough. He gives Frasier a thumbs up as Frasier and Martin leave. And Niles continues, I don't know what you want, I can't read minds, and neither can you. And that one was a step too far. I understand him saying that her cooking isn't very good. He could have been nicer about it, or he could have explained his intentions. But saying she can't read minds, that's uncalled for, because that's something that Daphne actually cares very deeply about and very much believes about herself. And to really attack her spiritual belief, her spiritual self-belief, I think is a horrible, horrible, nasty thing to do. That's just, that to me, that isn't just seeing an imperfection. Niles, I guess, sees it as an imperfection because he doesn't believe that she can do this, and therefore she's momentarily delusional whenever she has these visions. That's what I believe Niles is thinking. But instead he attacks her beliefs, her personal beliefs about herself and her abilities, and that's not fair. Whereas her ability to cook isn't part of the fabric of her being. So I think he really, really took it a step too far. Daphne calls him pretentious. They argue, but I guess it's kind of a good thing. And then, as we see, maybe they'll get to the next base in their relationship after all. So maybe not the best way to handle things, but I do like that things were wrapped up in one episode. They maybe could have dragged it out a little bit longer, but I think maybe over at least 2 episodes. But I think things worked out pretty well there. So I don't agree with everything, and I don't agree with everything Niles did, but at the same time, I guess all's well that ends well. And then we end with Cafe Nervosa. Frasier comes in while Niles is frozen in his own delight, and he's then with a patient and completely unable to contain his smile. So I guess well done, Niles. It's a solid episode, obviously great to see Daphne back. Highlight for me, the highlight for me is definitely the idea of Eddie having a children's book series. It's not too late. It really isn't too late. So if anybody ever wants to do that, anybody involved in the show, I'm not entirely sure who would own the copyright to that, but certainly if anybody wants to do it, I will be first in line to purchase copies of Eddie's book series. Daphne's Return is a great episode, a lot of really good takeaways, great food for thought. Some elements I didn't completely love, but in general, it's still a really decent episode of Frasier.